Got it. Hey, welcome to Point Black. Again, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. We on site. And as a matter of fact, we're on a sacred site.
Without a doubt.
And I'm Adolphus Pruitt.
I'm the Reverend Darrell Gray. And here we are in Fountain Park. We're right in front of Centennial Christian Church, one of the churches in the impacted area from the tornado that basically was decimated. There was a life loss in this church. So Adolphus is extremely, he's right. I mean, it's always been a sacred place, but, we want to give reverence to the life that was lost here. We continue to offer our prayers and condolences to her family and to the family of this church. And so we appreciate that.
And Darrell, the other thing is, ladies and gentlemen, you can see this view. We're sitting in front of the church and we're looking east towards Fountain Park. And if you are familiar with this scene, normally when you look east, what you will see is Dr. Martin Luther King.
That's right.
Standing up over Fountain Park, welcoming you to the park. And Dr. King is down. The king is down, and I don't know what they're going to do to put him back up. The king is down.
The king is down.
And I don't know what they're going to do to put him back up, but I'm just hoping that the statue wasn't damaged.
I don't think so. But I mean, listen, and Adolphus, from what I understand, the only statue of Martin Luther King Jr. in the state of Missouri. And I don't think it was damaged, and maybe I guess that coming on the day will give us some more insight, but I don't think it was. But I think that they're waiting to get it put back up. But I tell you, the tornado, you look out here, the trees, they're no more. It's open space. You look around, you see the devastation, you see the where there used to be a rooftop, there is none. The tarps now all over. You've got the bricks all around. I mean, the devastation is still very evident.
Well, the ladies and gentlemen, today we have a special guest.
Very special guest.
We have a special guest.
A very special guest.
The best way to put it is this. People oftentimes, when they talk about a politician or elected official, they always have something to say, and they talk about accountability and they talk about all the other stuff. But sometimes, folk, and I won't say it's a rare occasion, but if you wanted to make it a rare occasion, make it that way. Sometimes there are some politicians who are exactly what they claim to be.
Right.
As public servants,
right.
Elected officials who care about the people, who do the right things, and they work their butt off under some of the most trying circumstances. Because let's be clear, ladies and gentlemen, in the state of Missouri, it is a Republican-controlled legislature.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And we're talking about the Democratic senator for the city of St. Louis and some of St. Louis County, Senator Karla. How you doing, Senator?
Good morning. I appreciate the invitation, and I'm doing great. How are you both?
Listen, in all honesty, Senator, we're blessed. Some of us, I live in the impacted area. Mm-hmm. Tree came a foot from my front door, but it didn't hit my house. So when you ask how we're doing, we're doubly blessed in the midst of, as Adolphus said, some very trying times. But as Adolphus said too, public servant. I don't think I would call you a politician. I don't think I would, because of the connotation that it often has. You have been a true public servant, a servant leader. And I'm like Pruitt. I want to hear. I know you've navigated some serious stuff over the last couple of days since this tornado. Y'all had to navigate some very serious politically shark infested water in Jeff City.
Yeah.
And you've managed it. I've watched you.
Well, we were able to, come to some agreements on some things for the storm victims. And you're right. The devastation couldn't compare to what we see out here. Individuals have lost, almost everything. and there's no descriptive word that I can describe to say it. But I'll just say this in comments to thank you for, talking about me as a community servant. I always say this, and I said it publicly, God made government, but the devil made politics.
Ooh.
All right.
And
there you go.
so when when you're in this arena, because that's what it is, an arena, you have to navigate very carefully just to survive. And the reason you want to survive is because you really want to continue to impact the lives of people in a positive way. You really want to be able to represent the interests of the people who cast their vote for you in a positive way. So you have to navigate the devilishness of politics in order for you to be able to deliver what government is supposed to deliver to the people.
You know what, Daryl? I was up in the Capitol, guess it was about a month or so ago, and had a chance to visit with the senator in her office. And she has a war room in her office, and I'm very serious. I mean, she has a war room, and if you got a war room, you have to remember all your battles,
Right.
especially the ones you win. So in her war room, on the wall, she's got a representation of all the battles she won, and that's bills she's gotten passed since she's been in the legislature.
Absolutely.
And I'm looking at this wall because, BJ, I'm looking at it to sort of authenticate, because there's about 40, 50 bills hanging on that wall. And so I'm going up there looking at them, reading them, because I want to make sure that they say Senator Karla May or State Representative Karla May is the sponsor.
Right.
Because you can hang a lot of stuff on the wall, and if you're standing there looking at it from far away with that little writing, you just assume they heard.
Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I wear glasses, so I see well. And Karla, your name was on all of them.
So you are able to authenticate.
Her name was on them.
That her name was. But you know what? In a red state, as red as this state is, that is a testimony. And we talk about the disaster relief and going back and forth on that. But Senator, the reality in Jeff City for a Democrat is that you have to walk a tightrope. You have to walk a fine line. You want to keep your integrity as a Democrat, with whatever that means. But you also understand, in order to have 40, 50, 60 pieces of legislation that gets passed, that doesn't get passed because you're a Democrat.
So it doesn't. So for me, it has never been about the D's and the R's, the Democrats and the Republicans. It's always been about the policy and the people.
Right.
And so I like to respect people, and I like to respect their perspective of where they're coming from on policies. And then you have to be able to, you can't be locked in. You have to be able to say, listen, this is what I'm trying to do, and come up with a policy that you can, negotiate. And that policy has to be negotiated because you're passing legislation basically for the entire state. And so, having those conversations and building relationships is the key. But one of the keys too is, once you make a deal on something or you negotiated something, you got to keep your word. Because once you don't keep your word, you can't really deal effectively anymore.
Right. Well, Pruitt, throughout this whole, we're right in front of Centennial. And so throughout, we're 3 weeks and some days in. It'll be 4 weeks Friday. I've seen I've seen you standing beside the mayor. I've seen you standing beside U.S. Senator. I've seen you standing beside the governor. I've seen you in these press conferences and such, standing beside folk, showing folk how government works. But we just heard that FEMA, the president has authorized FEMA. how difficult, because people are looking, they're saying, wait a minute, we're in a disaster. How difficult is it to maneuver, to negotiate through this Friday we have a tornado, we're 3 weeks back, the process, help people to understand, how that works. How do we get to the 30 million here and the 100 million here and whatever the FEMA amount is? And I'm not sure what the FEMA amount is.
71 to
71 million right now. So basically, everything depends on the people you have in the positions at the time of the crisis.
Okay.
So your ability to get things done and to navigate bureaucracy is depending on the individuals you're dealing with.
Okay.
And what their agendas are. See, that's I have to say politics 101. I won't even say it's governments. It's governance too, but that's how you navigate. Because if you look back in history, disaster relief packages were done in 1 or 2 days.
Right.
Depending on who was there.
Gotcha.
And so, but I mean, and we have to be thankful that that our delegation, our congressional delegation, is working together to achieve what we need to have achieved. So it's just where we are now.
Gotcha.
Hey, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more on Point Black. We're here with the Senator, and we're here with Reverend Darrell Gray, folks. We're outside of Centennial Church. And we're back. Senator.
Yeah. So I just wanted to follow up on the process. He asked me, what's going to be the process? Well, the key is, for me, is that people stay on those websites. And if you can't get to those websites, some people need to help them get to those websites to get information. Because whether we like it or not, the effective way to communicate right now is online. And so you got the city website, and they have it broken down in whether you need debris removal, whether you need, roofing, whatever you need, you click on that. And you want to make sure that when you're clicking on it, you're putting your information and address in those systems so that your address can be one of the addresses that they're getting. Now, when I was talking to the city, I was asking them, because to me, they didn't have a process for self-reporting. I don't know if they've corrected that or not, where an individual can go online and say, hey, my house was impacted, and what that impact was. That would have created an electronic database for the city, so that, you wouldn't have to do the door-to-door in such a broad area. People could use their smartphones. Because everybody, even though my house might have collapsed, my phone may still work. My cell phone may work. Because even though I had lights out and electricity and my house was down, I could go sit in my car and deal with business on my phone. And I know that's what I did. So with that, the FEMA website, FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and then you got SEMA, SEMA, the State Emergency Management Agency, and then you got CEMA, which is the City Emergency Management Agency. You should be able to go on each one of those sites now that, especially FEMA, now that they've declared it a disaster. Click on that disaster and put your information in there, because they say, well, FEMA is on the ground. Well, I don't see them on my block.
Right.
So how do I get them to my block?
Right.
So there has to be a mechanism in order to get them to do the evaluation of your individual property. And I feel that you would have to get that information from that website, and you can click on where it says May 16th, Federal Disaster Relief, and it should lead you to a little form.
I'm glad you brought that up. I want to ask you this. I'm sorry, B, did you have something?
Yeah, I just thought about something. When we talk about this disaster relief fund, is it that everybody's going to get the same, or they're going to do it by property damage and loss?
Yeah, none is blanket. It depends on your property, your loss, what was lost. If you were underinsured or insured, things like that. So it's an individual case by case basis. Yeah.
I mean, for example, the Red Cross, they do the financial assistance. It's maxed out at $600 per household. But if it's one person in the household, it may only be $200. It may only be $300. So the Red Cross, I mean, they have their different assessment, and I suspect, as the senator said, they all will. But Senator, to your point, I still have an issue, and I think Adolphus and I talked about it. I agree with you that telephone and that website, everything is electronic. We get it. But I still think that the city, the state, whomever, is still going to have to maybe look at that old-fashioned way of knocking on people's doors, and because everybody doesn't roll with the same ability either. And I'm just saying that if you've got a caseworker that's going to work with people at the shelter, then I'm just saying that in this community, if I go through Fountain Park and I knock on the door and I say I'm with the Red Cross, or I'm with FEMA or whoever, just want to make sure that you have this information and give you a sheet, and the lady on the porch said, well, honey, I don't know nothing about that at least that person there. So I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just suggesting that maybe
the manpower is not going to be there, because basically if you got people that's going from different agencies, I'm sure FEMA might have some manpower that they put on the ground.
Right.
But since they have, released the federal aid, they might, get the Corps of Engineers here.
Gotcha.
Once they get the Corps of Engineers here, you might have more manpower on the ground.
Right.
But you're not going to have that many people in manpower, because them people have to be paid, and that absorbs finances. I'm just pointing out something.
Right. Yeah.
So I got you. I got a couple of questions, but one is, and this is not maybe a question for you to answer, Senator, nor you, Darrell, but it's one I've been thinking out loud, is I wonder what's going on with mail service. Now that, some of these houses are so bad off, or some of the people have left their houses, I wonder what's going on with mail service. I wonder if they even still trying to deliver the mail, and if not, how do people get their mail, especially folks on Social Security or getting their prescriptions in the mail. I just wonder go ahead, BJ, I'm sorry.
Well, one of the things that, my parents were part of the Heritage House.
Right.
When that shut down abruptly. So what has to happen is the post office, they have to go to the post office, show the ID, show that something that says that they're resident, and then they can pick up the mail from there.
Absolutely.
So they'll
Post
try
office will hold it.
Yeah, the post office holds everything that they have, and they had mail for my parents. They held it up. I was able to get about 6 months worth of mail once we went in to get the mail. So yeah, they'll hold it.
Right.
I was wondering.
Yeah. So they'll hold it. That's one of the things they can do, and people can also have it transferred somewhere else.
Yeah, I still want to. I mean, the city, Adolphus is part of it. You've got these two task force, Spirit of St. Louis, which is clergy, NAACP, Heart of St. Louis, secular organizations like Action St. Louis, Urban League, those organizations. I'm still a firm believer. I've seen people, all of us have seen how folk have responded during this crisis. That people who are not attached to any organization, some are not attached to any church, they're not attached to any organization, they're not employees of any government entity, but they've come out, they've set up, they've spoke up, they've showed up. And I want to believe that throughout this whole process where people are needed, and without us having, when I say us, without government having resources to take care of it, I just want to believe that people are going to continue to do that. And to the senator's point, I'm hoping that organizations or entities will continue to call upon volunteers to do those things that we can't pay people to do. I'm hopeful, but I'm just.
Well, I think, you have a lot of volunteer agencies that's going on right now. You have the entities that are volunteering, who are organizing the boarding up windows, like Dream Builders. Mm-hmm. You mentioned Action St. Louis. you have a couple of those entities that have got volunteers that's been doing it since day one. And then you got, a group of lawyers who have put together basically what I call Know Your Rights, and they're situated in the Urban League. On Saturdays, where you can come by and get that information to tell you about your rights. So they've been there on Saturdays. Now they're having information and things down at the Chaffetz Arena, where you can definitely get information on that as well. And I know that they've had organized food trucks that have been feeding people for free. They've been doing that for a while as well. So I think that the community and people have come together to help. And I think that now that we got the disaster relief money, that's going to help. We also, the House is in session right now this week. The Senate passed $100 million for St. Louis City as a dedicated fund. And then they put $25 million in for 37 counties, basically. But they put that in MHDC, and they're going to set up a MHDC office in the Urban League in order for people to come access that money. And that $25 million is not going to entities. So people need to come to MHDC to access that money because it's going directly to the person. And it can go from a range of things, from rent to food to different types of things. So they need to go, to get that. Now, the $100 million is going to come through SEMA, SEMA, and it will go from SEMA to the city. That's how that funding will be distributed. And the city will enter into an agreement with the state on how that money is going to be spent. It's normally a MOU sign when the state allocates funding. They normally get an MOU signed with the entity where the funding is going on how that money will be spent. So the city have to decide how they're going to use that $100 million.
Ladies and gentlemen, BJ done broke my mic, so if y'all don't hear me, that dead noise you heard on the radio, that was because BJ broke my mic, and I'm suing iHeart for a mic. So how much is this mic? About $50. So I'm gonna sue iHeart for $55 because I want a tip. But no. But Karla, here's the thing that I want to talk about. And Daryl, I really want you to help me with this, and Senator, you too. Because we are in the middle of a crisis. We have families whose homes and their ability to live life and all these things has been interrupted seriously. And folk, I'm constantly in folks saying, well, the city is not doing enough. The city is not. All these other folks are doing the work, not the city. And I'm like, first of all of these organizations and all these people out here volunteering and doing what they want to do to help people out, that's what neighbors do. Right. And there's no way in the world that any city could mobilize and do everything that all of these different organizations and all these neighbors are doing. It's impossible, and especially to mobilize and do it at an instant. Mm-hmm. And so I just think we need to understand that it is community that is out here doing it, and community should be out here doing it. And I believe that the city is doing everything that they can do to bag that up and support that. So I just want to know, Karla and Daryl, am I right?
No, listen, I think the senator said it, earlier on. Even when we talk about government, we're talking about doing things proper and in order. We're talking about government that cares for the welfare and the well-being of people. But that responsibility is not just given to government. That's all of our responsibilities. And so you're right. I mean, when I see, like I say, Senator Karla May, but I see the other elected officials out. I've seen Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, who has been out and worked tirelessly. Alderwoman Sharon Tyus, Alderwoman Laura Keyes. I've seen State Representative Kimberly Ann Collins. So I've seen that. But like you said, I've seen the churches stand up. I've seen churches show up and do what they're supposed to do. And I'm glad that what we as either religious organizations or nonprofit organizations have been able to go to the city or the state or whomever and say, listen, this is new to all of us. kind of give us a foundation, give us a template. And I think that that's what you've seen, and it's made things work, Adolphus, a lot more orderly. But I think as community, we have an obligation. What do we say? We are our brothers and our sisters' keepers.
Well, the key is this. People always want to act like the government is just the people that you elected. No, that's not the case. The system of governance, the republic, the democrat that we have been set up on is supposed to be by the people. It says we the people form a more perfect union. We the people, establish, all of this. It's supposed to be we the people. Right. And every constitution is founded basically upon the people as the government. So the people have to enact and mobilize, and they have done a great job at that because they're the government. Now, the government, the established government, is organizing the effort.
Right.
Meaning, they've been out, they're trying to organize what the taxpayers are paying for, meaning organizing the streets department and the people to pick up the debris, the trash, things like that, getting in touch with, Ameren and making sure that they're trying to get the power back on, things like that. That's the organized effort of, the government, at that level.
But at the same time, Senator, I want folks to understand this too is, I tell people all the time, you have to do your homework. The worst thing to do is to have an expectation of somebody for something that they don't have the ability or the authority to deliver.
Right.
Right.
And I think, I think you're right. And the senator said it. Everybody, all the elected officials in their respective positions at this time have done what we've expected them to do. Mm-hmm. They've pulled together. I think folk have been transparent. I think that, I've seen it. We've witnessed it. And my hat's off to all of them. I think all of the elected officials have done good. I want to say before we go on, too, we just want to remember, we are right here at the site of Centennial Christian Church, where a woman's life was lost, a member of this congregation. We want to thank Reverend Derek Perkins, former pastor of Centennial, and the interim pastor, Pastor Deidre Wise Baker. So we want to make sure that we acknowledge the angels of this house because we're sitting right in front. We're sitting right in front of their house. So we want to make sure we acknowledge that.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry.
No. Okay. The other thing is, Senator, and you can help me with this one, folks. She just explained that the state is going through the process of allocating $100 million for St. Louis, but in order for the governor to even send that down, somebody had to introduce some legislation. The legislation has to pass, and then once it's passed, it has to go to these departments. So to say that we don't think, say for instance, the governor could have give us $100 million right away, was that possible?
No. So basically, first before even that happened,
yeah, good point.
The governor issued a call. And that's when the negotiations started, especially for myself, because the day I saw the call, I contacted the governor's office.
Call for a special session.
The call for the special session. Mm-hmm. And I said, this number is not working for me. Okay. We need to get to a point where this makes sense. And I needed to make sense. And right now it wasn't making sense. So let's have some conversations about how we can get to a place that will make sense for the people that have been impacted the greatest, in this situation. And it's levels of impact. Let me say that. And we're not discounting anybody who's been impacted because there have been some very affluent parts of my district that have been impacted as well.
Right.
Such as Richmond Heights, Clayton, areas like that, the Central West End part of my district. But in that, some of those entities have different means of, resolving or reducing their level of impact more quickly than the people who don't have means, meaning that the houses in North St. Louis that were uninsured or underinsured because of all various type of reasons. One of them being redlined and one of them being blocked and not being insured based on law. Law created that problem. So in those areas, we have to look at things differently. And therefore, you had to do some negotiation in order to, say, hey, this is what's happening. And the governor, he's counting on the people that represent the area to have that conversation with him.
Right.
So I negotiated exclusively with the governor's office, and that's where we met at $100 million. He said, basically, can we start with $100 million? I said, I'm good if we start with $100 million. And that doesn't mean it's going to stop there. You got next year. You got,
And I was going to ask you that too, because we're talking about long term. This is long term.
We're talking about long term, and $100 million at least gets us through 6 months. Gets us through the winter. That's what we're talking about.
There you go.
But ladies and gentlemen, it's important. I want you to hear this. The senator. So let's be clear. Senator Karla May, if I'm not mistaken, is the second highest ranking individual in state government from a legislative standpoint, including the House and the Senate. You're number 1 or 2.
I think I'm number 3, but
you're number 3. Number 3.
Number 3.
But the highest, but the most seniority as African American,
as a Democrat, as an African American,
and as an African American. That's one. And that seniority is essential because she told the governor we need to start with $100 million, and he started there. And you won't read you ain't gonna read about this in the paper. You ain't gonna hear about it because the senator works in the way that she works. She's like, hey, I'm gonna go in there and negotiate, and I'm gonna get the job done, get us some money, and all that stuff about who did what, who said what, all that. We leave because if we didn't bring this up, she wasn't gonna bring it up. We brought it up. But we brought it up for a reason. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Sarah,
and at the end of the day, but you're right. Listen, in chaos, in tragedy, in disaster, our brightest stars have to shine brighter. And Senator, we're not saying this just because you're sitting there, because you already know how we feel about you. We already know people who know the work that you do. And so, but people do need to understand that that's how it's done. Yeah, I mean, people do need to understand that even this fast pace. But anyway, we got to take a quick break, ladies and gentlemen. We're gonna be right back with Senator Karla May and more Point Blank.
And we are back. And by the way, all of us are still black.
I knew you could say it. I knew you could do it. I knew you could not get through a show without saying that. You can't do it, can you?
But I'm blue-black.
No, you're
well,
not.
after we sitting in this sun, we
I was
definitely gonna be a couple of shades.
Listen, ladies and gentlemen,
darker.
We on site. We sitting face in the sun. The sun is shining on us. And
you lucky I need some vitamin D.
And my
just like being at the pool.
That's right. But my ancestors who are sitting next to me on either side, they keep forgetting that they come from the motherland, and this sun is nothing compared to what we can get there. So sit back and enjoy it, because who knows, it could be a storm on the way. But Senator, here's what I got to ask you.
So,
I'm sorry, Senator.
So before you ask me that question, I was going to also say, it's not to negate anybody else's negotiations.
Sure.
Because other negotiations had to take place as well, because you're dealing with 34 senators. So you have the president pro tem, you have especially because the appropriations chair was carrying the bills. I had several conversations with him as well during the process. And you have the floor leader, and you have Senator Roberts, who is the minority leader. I'm sure that he had his conversations, but I just deal exclusively with the governor, because I knew who was handling.
But Senator, I'm glad you said that. But ladies and gentlemen, she said that, and it needs to be said. But the point I brought it up, and the reason I brought it up, because I think it's important that folks understand that it's still about relationships.
Right.
Absolutely.
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 You know, and that at
Absolutely.
the end of the day, relationships are the critical factor to move things. Because a whole bunch of people can ask for a whole bunch of things, but there's, for instance, if I tell BJ that I want this show to be 2 hours, you know, I can't tell that to the person behind BJ. I got a relationship with them, but they can't make it happen.
They can't make it happen.
I can't tell that to Vidal.
Right.
He can't make that.
He might want it to happen, but he can't make it happen.
But I can say it to BJ
'Cause
and
you have a
have a
relationship.
potential of making it happen
Because you have the
relationship.
I agree with you.
Absolutely.
And you know what? I mean, but listen, it makes all the sense in the world, and that's why, you know, Senator. Listen, I'm an independent Democrat. Pruitt called me a progressive. I become an independent Democrat because I realize, as the senator said, in Jefferson City, you can't ride with an alphabet on your arm. You've got to be able to form relationships. It's got to be about policy. It's got to be about personality. It's got to be about principle. It's got to be about principle. And so don't get me wrong. I'm not negating or bad mouthing the D's or the R's. I'm simply stating
Absolutely.
that relationships and being able, at the end of that, to stand on your principle.
And,
Oh,
and those
absolutely.
relationships had to be across the aisle.
They got to be across the aisle. They got to
Absolutely.
be.
Because the majority across the aisle takes. But he said, but folks, he said he's a PID, a PID, a progressive independent Democrat.
Or it could be a
PID.
DIP, a dip. It could be a dip.
Oh, you could be a dip,
It could be a dip. It could be a dip.
Oh my God.
Oh, you
I'm like,
Carla, do you want to dip into this
whatever the
conversation?
I don't wanna dip
acronym,
into
whatever the
that.
acronym, Carla said, the senator said, no, I don't want to
I'm
dip.
gonna let you alone with that. But you're absolutely right. You know, I have an established relationship with this current governor because we have worked on projects prior to him being governor and had a successful relationship in working together on those issues. So that's where we are. That's the foundation of, you know, the relationship. We
Senator-
worked on things before.
The senators, as citizens, because our citizens are looking and listening, and whether they here in St. Louis or somewhere else across the country, as citizens, in these sort of situations, what should we be doing? What should we be doing?
For me right now, for my citizens and for those who know any impacted people, it's important that we continue to disseminate accurate information to the individuals that have been impacted.
Right.
First of all, we have to, let them understand this insurance game. And that's why I said, the lawyers put together some information. They're at the Urban League. You want to get that information so that you won't be lowballed by your insurance company on, what your policy looks at. Understanding your policy and what it's supposed to do. We have some insurance. I've called the
Department of Insurance?
Yes, the State Department of Insurance. We are working together. Right now, we've had conversations about something that they're going to do that's going to be helpful, I do believe, in this instance. So I got to follow up on that conversation. But we have had preliminary talks about, how do we help with the uninsured and the underinsured. And by the way, that money is also supposed to help those, that 25 million and that 100 million are supposed to help the uninsured and the underinsured. So we are definitely trying to do those perspectives, but people have to disseminate this information, and people that are impacted are going to have to use their grandchildren, anybody that knows them,
There you go.
to get them information about what steps they need to take in order to preserve their assets. And we have to watch each other's assets. People that's stealing bricks and stuff. Bricks are very valuable right now. I think it's $8 a brick. I hate to say it on the radio.
It is $8
But,
a brick.
we have to, protect the integrity of our property. If my house went down, how can I preserve my bricks? How can I get them, put in a bundle and stored somewhere so that I can use them or sell them? Things like that. We have to care about each other enough to continue to provide accurate information so that people can thrive. And I think once we all thrive, we all survive.
And Daryl, Reverend, what should the churches be doing? And what should us Christians? Not because the church is the people that's in the church.
Right. But I think that all of us as faith leaders, be it Christians, Muslim, Jews, whomever, I think that we have to continue to live out our faith. Our faith has got to issue into action. So we can't just pray this away.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We've got to get out here, and we got to be, as you said, we got to be boots on the ground. And we've got a church in all of these communities, in these impacted areas. And so let's use our churches as hubs. Let's use our churches as information centers. Let's use our churches as volunteer points. Let's use our churches to not just help those within our congregation, but those who are struggling in the shadows of our steeple, right outside our door. And then Senator, and then to you too, Adolphus. Right now, everybody's, the energy's there because we're only 3 weeks outside of the tornado. So everybody's still, gun-ho. The energy's always there. My concern, Senator, Adolphus, is at NAACP as we move along. My concern is that are we going to get lulled to sleep? I'm just hoping that this energy to rebuild, this energy to recover, I just hope that we just keep it up, man. That's my biggest fear.
And BJ, iHeart has been a excellent partner. We love iHeart, but BJ, what should we be broadcasting over the states? What is there a role for radio in this instance?
Yes, it's always a role for radio. I just think that anybody, whether it's mayor, governor, whoever they are, that have accurate information about how this recovery is going to be when we talk about funding, when we talk about some of the things that people should do, they need to use radio. I mean, I'm not discounting, other platforms like television, social media, because a lot of times when the information is given out, there's a 1.5 minute clip that's taken out of maybe about a 15-minute conversation, and now you only get that clip. And then on social media, you get people who says their narrative, and they just run back their narrative of what they want to put out there. So I think that I encourage, everybody to, use the radio station. They can contact me over at iHeart, BJ at iHeartMedia.com. That's just a B and a J. Now, that's BJ at iHeartMedia.com, so we can help get the accurate and the true information out to the people, because this is the time that people need the right information. And Senator Karla made a good point for seniors. If you have a senior in your family, they've been affected, and you know how to go on, that cell phone and go to these websites. You need to do that for, the senior that's in your family, even if you're a young person and you just know it, you know a senior, whatever. Help your neighbors out. That's all I'm saying.
Help your neighbors out. And let me ask this, so with the radio, is it public service announcements, free public service announcements? Say, for instance, if we are sending the information to you, this is the information that's current right now. This is where they can go get this. This is, say, for instance, when the office over here opens up, can we give that office, say, MHDC is taking applications right now at this location.
Yes.
We want to be able to send that information and that information get out.
That information has to come to us, because we do run public service announcements. We do have community shows such as Point Black, the Freeman Bosley Jr. Show. We have The Fix. We also have just the iHeart Communities community show that goes across 7 of our brands every week for 30 minutes.
Okay.
You know what I mean? This is information that we need, and iHeart want to be the company or the catalyst here in St. Louis to make sure people are getting the right information. And that's why we have so many different avenues and platforms that people can come on and talk about, what's out there. You know what I mean? Especially, like you said, when these offices start opening up, it'd be good for the offices to contact us so we can get that right information out there.
Well,
yes.
I'm going to send my information directly to you from my office.
Do that.
Yes.
Hey, by the way, BJ, we're going to have a celebration before we wrap up. We got to have a celebration.
Uh-oh.
Because somebody had a birthday recently.
Oh my goodness!
Somebody had a
Who
birthday.
had a birthday?
The senator turned 30-something again.
30
Thursday.
something.
Wait, Thursday.
Thursday.
Yes.
Well, happy birthday, Senator. We wish you so many more. We wish you so many
Thank
more.
you.
Happy birthday from our heart and Point Black. I'm telling you, the stars are shining in the darkness. Listen, in the darkness of this tornado, we have seen our stars shine. Senator Karla May, other black elected officials, our mayor, our governor, everybody. I mean, listen, folk have stood up. And as the senator said, Adolphus, community, we've got to hold them up. They've stood up. So now let's hold them up. We want to hold them accountable, but let's hold them up.
And we are out.